Hello, welcome to the Texas Art Institute Library and Learning Resource Center, second in our series on advanced PubMed subject searching. In this short tutorial, we will talk about medical subject headings, commonly referred to simply as MESH, and how to use them to improve your PubMed search. MESH is the controlled vocabulary used by the National Library of Medicine to index articles included in MEDLINE. All subjects are assigned by human indexers familiar with the literature in that area. It has a tree structure with broader and narrower terms, and this hierarchical arrangement gives the searcher power to easily expand and focus queries. So if we start with the query that we started in the previous video, does an echocardiogram provide diagnostic information about ischemic heart disease? We can start to take a look at the MESH terms and how we can use them to better focus our search. This is the search that we ran last time. We just put the terms in and let PubMed find the MESH headings for us. And if you'll remember, we put in ischemic heart disease, and it came up with two different MESH terms, myocardial ischemia, and then also coronary artery disease. And for echocardiogram, it came up with echocardiography as the MESH term. So if we're looking at the results of a PubMed search, you'll have the citation here. If I click on it, I will open out the full record. And to quickly go to see the MESH or medical subject headings, you can go in the right-hand column here where it says MESH terms. If you click there, it will scroll you down to the bottom where those terms are now located. And you'll kind of get an idea. Some of the terms have asterisks next to them, which means that they are a main topic for this article. The other headings are minor topics, or they're discussed in the article, but they're not the main point. So here we have echocardiography, which we were looking for. And you can see that it is not marked with an asterisk. It wasn't the main point of the article. The article talks about echocardiography, but it's not the focus of the whole article. So how can we use this information to better focus? If you click on the term here, you can use it to start a PubMed search, or you can go and look at the subject heading area to get a little bit more detail about the term and how it's defined and how it can be used. So here in the MESH database, our search for echocardiography shows up not articles, but rather terms that can be used. And you can see that there are 8 terms that come up, and they're all related. If we click on this top one to open it out, we'll see here is the scope note or the definition of this particular term. And it seems to match with what we want. These are the subheadings that have been associated with this particular heading. And here are the entry terms. So if you had typed in any of these entry terms, it would have mapped automatically to this MESH heading, this topic. And one of the benefits of the medical subject headings is the structure. So you'll see this outline type structure where echocardiography shows up in 3 different branches actually of this, all under diagnosis, but one under cardiac imaging, one under heart function tests, and one actually under diagnostic imaging ultrasonography. And then under echocardiography, there are all these narrower and even narrower terms. So if we were to search for echocardiography, the benefit to MESH is that it will search for those narrower terms as well. If you want to turn that off, that is this button here. Do not include MESH terms found below this term in the MESH hierarchy. So if I simply want to start kind of looking at this term, I can click on Add to Search Builder, and you'll see that this is how I should enter it into a search. And I'm going to use this real quick in a little sample here so you can kind of see how terms get added. So this term was actually added in 1973, so you can see that it came into being, and then it's pretty much flat. Yes. And if I were to eliminate those terms below it, I do that by adding : no exp for do not expand, or in the old days, they used to call it do not explode. And we can see if we run that same search that the narrower terms under the main heading are not included. So we expect this number to be lower. And you can see here, this is probably when some of those narrower terms were introduced in the early 80s. The other thing that you can do is to restrict it to the MeSH major topic. So it would have to have an asterisk by it in the indexing. And that you use MAJR, MJ for short in your search tag. And you'll see that if we restrict it to major topic, of course, there's going to be fewer results. But these articles will be about echocardiography, not simply just mentioning echocardiography as part of how they did the study. And the most narrow would be to restrict it to a major topic and not include those terms that come below it in the search. So that is MAJR : no exp. And we'll see that that creates an even narrower, smaller search. Here, this green line. And again, it has that difference between when those narrower terms were introduced. You can see that here. The other thing that you can see from this record is that this topic was introduced in 1973 and had prior indexing in 1967. So if we're interested in articles that happened or that were published before that, we should look at the previous indexing. And here, the previous indexing was ultrasonics. It's probably, in this case, not that useful to actually search for this, but if you were looking at the development of echocardiography through the years and needed some historical information, you would want to include this topic, ultrasonics, for this date range here, and perhaps not so much for this going forward. But you can see how here there are actually articles that are about ultrasound in this date range before the heading was added. Another way to do this, of course, is to search for title and abstract words that occur there. All right, so now we've looked at these headings. And if we decide that we want to, in this case, I'm going to restrict it to MeSH major topic because I'm going to show you how you can use this to really focus in on an article. And we're kind of interested in methodology. The subheadings are essentially qualifiers, and they also have a small amount of structure to them. So here are the main ones: analysis, and there are a few more narrower terms. So if you search for analysis as a subheading, you're also searching for any of these subheadings. If we come down, diagnosis and diagnostic imaging are good ones. And then everybody is pretty familiar with some of these others. So some therapeutic use, therapy. So prevention and control, this is one that comes up a lot, we like to use. But you can see here that these subheadings do have a little bit of a structure. So you can use diagnosis or diagnostic imaging to be more specific. In this case, because this is a method, I'm going to look for methodology, and I'm going to add this to my search builder as a major topic. And we'll see echocardiography, and you'll see that it's added the subheading with a slash, and then the MAJR instead of the MESH in the field tag. I can now click on Search PubMed to take that over to a PubMed search. and there's quite a few results. If I'm interested now in creating the second half of my search, I want to focus in on the ischemic heart disease portion of this. And instead of going to an article, this time I'm going to take you to the MESH database again. So you can always find it from the PubMed.gov homepage here under Explore the MESH database. And this takes us into that search interface where we were before. Ischemic heart disease. And you'll see that here are the two medical subject headings that we saw in our automatic term mapping in the first exercise. And if I click on one of them, then I'll see the structure here. Here is the note about what is myocardial ischemia for the indexer, and it was introduced in 1993. Here you see that there's a larger number of subheadings that are available for this particular topic. Here are those entry terms. If we put in, here is the term that we actually typed in, ischemic heart disease, well, it's here. And you can see that previously it was actually indexed under coronary disease. And the interesting thing with this is that because of the nature of ischemia, it's under heart diseases, it's also under vascular diseases, which kind of makes sense. Myocardial ischemia is the broader term, and then you'll say coronary disease here, a narrower term, and then here's coronary artery disease, an even narrower term. So we can take a look at this and decide whether we really want to look at all of these myocardial ischemia terms, all of these different kinds of topics, or if we want to be a little bit more focused, search for coronary disease, or if we want to be very focused and only search for coronary artery disease. For this particular exercise, I want to be pretty focused. So I'm going to click on coronary artery disease, and we can see here's the MESH record for that and some of the entry terms for this. And you can see it was also indexed as coronary disease in the beginning. But you see here, there's no narrower terms, so there's no need to not include the terms below it. I am going to go ahead and take this narrow term and restrict it to a MESH major topic. And then I'm also going to tell it that I'm interested in diagnosis, specifically diagnostic imaging. So here I have my main medical subject heading, and now my subheading, diagnostic imaging. You can see that the main headings are capitalized, every word will be capitalized, and for the subheadings, they're all lowercase. You can kind of tell the difference between a subheading and a main heading that way. And I've put, we're using the MAJR, or major subject heading. If I add this now to search PubMed, here I have 8,000 results for that particular narrower term. And now if I come to the advanced search history area, I can take my two narrow searches and add them together here in the query box. And I get 300 and some results. So here you can see that we have very quickly focused down in on this particular topic. And if we open out one of these articles, go to the medical subject headings, we'll see that we do have coronary artery disease / diagnostic imaging with an asterisk, meaning it's a major topic, echocardiography methods, major topic. So this article came up because those were the terms that we put in. And I hope you can see that most of these articles are very focused on that particular topic. In the next video in this series, we'll talk a little bit about how you put these terms together. You'll see that we put an and in between these two. And in this original example, there are a lot of ors as well. So we'll go in and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video. I hope you'll watch.